Hello. I really enjoy being part of book clubs, but finding the right titles to read together is really important, I think, because ideally I want books that are largely pleasurable for everyone to read, but have enough meaty topics and themes to them that will inspire a lot of discussion and probably disagreements about the plot and the characters and the meaning of the book, because quite frankly, it's boring when there are books that just everyone loves or everyone hates because there's not all that much to discuss to them. And recently, the Booker Prize invited me to write an article for their website recommending 10 books from the Booker Prize library that have been listed for or won the prize in the past that I think will make great book club reads. And with my own online book club, we read 3 of the books that were listed for the Booker Prize this year, and we had really interesting discussions around all of these books. But I wanted to recommend some older books that people might not have come across before that have been listed for the prize, and but that I think all are really interesting and dynamic and will provide a lot of juicy discussion. So first off, I'll go in like order of publication and like when they were nominated for the prize. So there is The Public Image by Muriel Spark, and this was listed for the prize way back in 1969, and Muriel Spark was a very prolific author. I think a lot of her books would be great for book club discussions because her writing is so pleasurable to read in that it's very funny and witty, and the way she dissects her characters, it's just such a pleasure to read about. Now, the main theme of this novel about the division between the public and the private image of celebrities, it may feel like a very well-trodden theme, but the way that Muriel Spark executes this, I think is so gripping and tantalizing in how she describes these characters' lives, as we follow a woman named Annabelle, who's a very famous actress, and she's kind of catapulted into stardom and is known publicly as the Tiger Lady, and she maintains this carefully created public image with her and her husband Frederick, who's a screenwriter, but he is less successful than she is, and also he grows increasingly frustrated by what he sees as the hypocrisy between her public image and their private lives together, but he's also jealous of her success. So he hatches a plan to sabotage her public image, and so we follow this very dramatic story, and reading about these characters and their lives is so fascinating, but also how she explores this tension that I think all of us feel between our private relationships and then how those relationships are presented to the public. And even though it's a much older book, I think it has even more relevancy today in terms of like social media and influencers in that division between the private life and the public one that we present to the world online. Hotel de Lac by Anita Brookner actually won the Booker Prize in 1984, and this story is such a joy to read as it follows a romance writer named Edith Hope who travels to Switzerland to an upscale hotel that it's the off season of this hotel. So there aren't many other residents, and we follow as she makes her observations about all of these curious and funny residents who inhabit this hotel that's like in the process of closing down for the season, and she's purportedly gone here to finish writing her new book, but really there are murky things about her past and reasons that she left England and went into this self-imposed exile, which we gradually discover over the course of the book. And so the narrative is a mixture of her observations of all of these really curious and intriguing residents and their dialogue and interactions with each each other, but also her letters that she is writing to a lover of hers, but she doesn't actually send these letters, and the tension of this relationship is also gradually uncovered over the course of the story, and it's really beautiful how there, and a lot of like the surface detail of these characters' lives, how she gradually mines how there are so many more intriguing things about their past and the psychology of these characters and how they've come to this place. And also there's this irony of how she is a romance writer, and she is sort of caught up in this romance herself, and a potential new romance that she finds at this hotel, but how really we as individuals can get like trapped by our own like social constructions and what society dictates how our relationships should run. And as an exploration of love, this novel gives so much to talk about. Now, Alan Hollinghurst won the Booker Prize in 2004 for his novel The Line of Beauty, but a decade earlier, his novel The Folding Star was shortlisted for the prize. And this story explores loneliness and obsession and loss in such a compelling way, as it follows an Englishman named Edward who moves to Belgium to become an English teacher. And we follow him as he engages in a number of trysts with men and has hookups with them, but he also develops an absolute obsession with his student Luke, and but also he becomes completely enraptured by a particular artist's paintings. And Hollinghurst's writing, and just the way he crafts his sentences and his prose and creates these scenes is so beautiful and such a pleasure to read. But also this is such a fascinating story because there are so many scenes, really like explicit scenes early on in this novel that have a lot of like mystery to them, and why he follows his sexual drive in such an obsessive way. And gradually the story uncovers things about his past, people he was connected to in his past, and the life that he's left behind, and how he's come to this point where he can admire the beauty of life, but not fully engage in it. And so this story, I think, provides so many interesting points of discussion. The title of Marina Lewycka's novel, A Short History of Tractors in Ukrainian, might make it sound like a very dry textbook, but this story is absolutely absorbing, as it follows two adult sisters who have been estranged from each other for many years, but they unite together when they discover that their 84-year-old's father is planning to marry a much younger woman named Valentina, who they perceive as a gold digger. And so we follow their story as they try to break up this relationship and intercede in their father's personal affairs. But also their father is working on this history of tractors, and so he is originally from Ukraine, but has lived in England for many years. And so we follow the text of this book as he almost unintentionally uncovers things about his family history, and which his daughters come to discover much more about their past and their family heritage through this, but also how Valentina's motives for marrying their father are much more complicated than what they appear to be on the surface. So the way that this novel explores issues to do with family dynamics and morality and political conflict is so compelling and gives so much to talk about. The Blazing World by Siri Hustvedt, who's such an intelligent and fascinating writer. And so this story follows an obscure artist named Harriet, or Harry is her nickname, and she has become frustrated by the perception and limited options for female artists in the larger art world. And so she devises this scheme to create a number of art pieces and selects male artists who present this artwork as their own when she is really the true creator. But rather than being a straightforward narrative, this novel is an assemblage of notebooks and reviews and different accounts of these artworks to create this larger picture both of Harriet's life itself, but also the particular artworks that are presented and the art worlds in general. And it may seem like a convoluted way of going to tell a story, but really it is so fascinating piecing together the story through all of these many different accounts and trying to figure out what is the truth and what is a lie amidst this deception that Harriet has conceived, and also the truth about her own personal history and life. And so I think there is so much to discuss in this novel, and with all the dramatic twists that occur in the story. A Whole Life by Robert Seethaler, translated by Charlotte Collins. And this novel, which is very slender, is so graceful and beautiful as it follows the entire trajectory of a man named Andreas's life, from his childhood through love and war to his old age. And he lives a fairly solitary existence, and while the world is transforming around him, there is something essential and constant in the core of his life. And how the author captures this in the story, I think, is so fascinating and beautiful, because he's from a very small rural town, but then gradually it builds up and becomes much larger around him. And so we see through his perspective how all of this familiar location to him that he has known his entire life completely changes over the course of it. And so I think it's a story that inspires every reader to start to contemplate about the roads not taken in life, but also the meaning of existence in general, and the process of aging, and will inevitably get readers starting to share their own life experiences and reflections about their lives. We're accustomed to thinking of national identities as fixed things, that everyone is born in a particular country that has borders around it. But what would happen if these demarcations became truly porous? And that is what Mohsin Hamid explores so creatively in his novel Exit West, where portals between nations start magically appearing and with increasing frequency, so people are able to freely move between countries and start living elsewhere. And so this fantastical plot inspires the reader to reconceptualize the meaning of citizenship, but also what storytelling itself can do, because it's quite wondrous reading about this story, but also thinking about this large issue to do with immigration, which is such a politically contentious topic, but also it's a love story as it follows two characters, Nadia and Saeed, who come from an anonymous war-torn city and move to different locations, and how their relationship changes over time and as they move between different countries is so compelling to read about, and so emotional as well. So this is an absolutely fascinating book that inspires readers to reimagine how we approach everyday reality. Nightboat to Tangier by Kevin Barry follows the story of two aging long-term friends, Maurice and Charlie, who happen to have been Irish gangsters, and we follow them as they are waiting in a Spanish port for a particular boat to arrive, and they're mulling over the past of their lives, but also the disappearance of Charlie's adult daughter. And so we follow in their exchanges as they they discuss the real meaning of their lives and their drug smuggling operations, and how they've become estranged from the people in their lives that are most important to them. And their conversations are so funny and just like hilarious in their witty dialogue between each other, and frequent dirty jokes that they share. But also there's a twist of melancholy to their conversation that shows the deeper emotions of these characters that they're not openly discussing. So it's a tale that moves between the absurd and the realistic as it ponders the big questions in life, and also is partly like inspired by one of the greatest works of Irish literature of all time, Samuel Beckett's Waiting for Godot, as it follows these two characters who are sat there in this state of perpetual waiting. And it inspires the reader to ponder a lot of poignant issues to do with family and masculinity and virtue and regret. Trust by Hernan Diaz is so brilliantly constructed and gives readers so much to discuss as they are reading the story, because the novel presents 4 separate manuscripts about the life of a Wall Street tycoon named Andrew and his brilliant wife Mildred, and we follow them in the lead up to the Great Depression, and how they amassed a large fortune. And with each manuscript, the reader is forced to question and reassess everything that they've read before, and the legitimacy and the truth of what they've read before. And this might seem like a convoluted or repetitive way of telling a story, but it shows how narrative itself can be shaped to fit the ideologies of the characters involved and who is presenting this story. And we come to see the points of view of many different characters, and we're forced to ask who we believe. And Diaz so cleverly plays off from the double meaning of particular words like trust and bonds and futures, which have to do with financial affairs, but also have to do with human relationships. So I think it's an absolutely riveting story, but also it asks these larger questions like why should the majority of the world's wealth be controlled by relatively few people, and looking at the consequences of that. Is Mother Dead by Vigdis Hjorth, translated by Charlotte Barslund. This story follows a very successful female artist who's lived away from her native country of Norway for a long time, but she travels back to Oslo because a major retrospective of her work is being launched there, and her few remaining family members still live in Oslo, but she's been estranged from them for a long time. So she tries to contact her mother, but her mother rejects this contact and won't see her. And so this artist starts stalking her mother. So there is so much tantalizing emotion at the heart of this story of this broken family relationship, and gradually the reasons for the estrangement of these family members is revealed. But also this story raises so many questions about the morality of her actions, because she starts stalking her mother with increasing frequency and demanding to see her and to speak to her, but also the morality of family members that will reject part of their family and deny their very existence. And so the story raised a lot of tender emotions for me, and made me reflect upon my own personal experiences, and wanted to share them with other readers and hear about other readers' experience as well. So those are my suggestions of some Booker books that I think will make great book club choices and give readers so much to talk about. But I would love to hear if you've read any of these books, either on your own or in the context of a book club, and the issues that it raised for you, and if people people had different points of view about it, and whether you agreed with other readers' opinions or disagreed with them, or with my own. Please let me know about that in the comments below. But if you have any suggestions of either Booker books or other books that you think would make great book club choices, I would love to hear about that as well. And if you're not part of my online book club but would be interested in joining, I'll put a link to that below so you can find out more information about it. But I hope you're doing well and reading good things, and I will speak to you again soon. Bye bye.